we were filling out the paperwork, and like I said, private school wasn't cheap. And you asked me, what did you ask me?
I don't remember what I asked you. What did I ask you?
You said, why am I spending so much money
Yeah.
in school? And I said, because you said you wanted to make sure that he learned how to read.
And he already was reading. So that at that point we said, yeah, why don't we homeschool? Hi, I'm John.
I'm Yvette.
And this is our homeschool journey.
Yeah, and quite a journey it was. I never thought that I would homeschool. I had an English degree, and I was a copywriter and an editor, and I loved my job. And I wasn't even sure I wanted children, but he came from a family of 6 boys, and he won because we ended up having 5 children. And the first 4 were boys. The last one was a girl. And he was right, because having a big family was awesome.
Yeah, and so we were both products of public school. And so when we decided to have our kids go to school, we said, you know, we'll just put them in school like everybody else. But my wife, Yvette, she always had a passion for learning, and she came to me one day and said, hey, you know, what would you think about if I homeschooled the kids? And I was probably a little more resistant to that idea, you know, but they were young, and I said, yeah, go ahead. They were going to be in kindergarten and everything. We had one in 2nd grade at the time and one in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. They were in a private Christian school, which wasn't cheap. And so I wanted to pull them out, and he said, okay. But then when we had our 3rd son was going to be ready to start kindergarten age, he wanted to make sure that he went to kindergarten, because at that school they taught you how to read in kindergarten. And we were filling out the paperwork, and like I said, private school wasn't cheap. And you asked me, what did you ask me?
I don't remember what I asked you. What did I ask you?
You said, why am I spending so much money in school? And I said, because you said you wanted to make sure that he learned how to read.
And he already was reading, because Yvette taught him the phonics game and everything. And so that at that point we said, yeah, why don't we homeschool?
Yeah. Yeah, he literally learned how to read just sitting on the floor watching me play the phonics game with his older brother. So he tore up the paperwork. And so we ended up homeschooling all 5 of our children. We only had 3 at the time, but there were 3 within 3.5 years. And all little boys, a lot of testosterone. It was crazy. And I asked him that first year when I pulled him out, I asked him, what do you guys want to learn? Because obviously they didn't have a choice about math and English, and want to make sure that they were good readers, etc. But I wanted to make schooling fun, because I thought, well, if I pull them out, they're going to miss recess and class parties and field trips. And so I wanted it to be fun. And so my oldest son said he wanted to learn about buffalo. And the second one said he wanted to learn about great thinkers. And he was a deep thinker. And then the one heading into kindergarten said he wanted to learn all about guns. I was like, okay. So all we did that year, because I wanted it to be really fun, is we did math every day at their level. And then we did a language workbook and spelling. But then I just kind of poured myself into doing those 3 subjects. And I was, by God's providence, we found a bison farm 45 minutes from where we lived. And we went there, and we went to a gun museum, and we learned about Einstein and space, and the kids just, all of a sudden, their love for learning just exploded.
Well, and one of the foundations that we thought was really important is to develop a love for reading, because if you can read, you can pretty much learn anything. And so it was, part of our routine is every day when I would get home from work, and we would always have a meal together. And one of the benefits of homeschooling is the kids got their work done during the day. So when I got home from work, we can all eat together, and that was an important part of our day, is to talk about what they learned that day, and and just understand what was happening in their lives. And then at night, I would read to them. I would read stories to them every night, chapter books. And when we got to the end of the chapter, it would get to a point where, Dad, can you read the next chapter? I'd go, nope, you have to wait till tomorrow. And so that love for reading is, I think, what we want to instill in the children. I mean, as an important part of what they did. And if you went to our house, you'd see we have a wide library of all different types of books.
Well, and the kids we continued reading together even after they were really good readers. And they all read on their own as well, but that time together reading enabled conversations to take place. You could ask them questions. I had read a book that talked about the importance of the father, if possible, if there is a dad, to read, because then, and we had 4 boys first, they wouldn't view it as a kind of a girl thing, because dad was the one reading them the stories at night. And obviously I read to them also, but that also gave him the opportunity to connect with them in the evenings. But it was very cool. One of the things that I also wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I kept it fun and exciting, all about learning. And so I established this thing I called it Freaky Fun Friday, and it's not easy to say. But we would do math and do a spelling test, but then that day was a fun educational day. And so we might play, depending on the weather, we'd play board games, we'd go on a field trip, we'd go on a hike, maybe watch an educational movie. They were always learning. In fact, we even learned on the week. I mean, we were always learning, but it was something fun that they thought was fun, and they really looked forward to it. So, and then another thing that I think is super important, people are always worried about socialization. That was never a problem. In fact, we had to kind of pull back on things, going, okay, we're just going to stay home today. The whole idea of homeschooling, it's such a misnomer, because a lot of the learning is done, out and about. We did lots and lots of very cool field trips. They would go and visit him at his work, and it was just a really fun time. But we had our kids in activities.
Yeah,
we thought that was super important.
Yeah, I mean, like our kids. Again, we never had aspirations when we homeschooled that we wanted them to go to college. I mean, we wanted them.
We did, but we didn't have to.
But there
were alternatives,
right? I mean, if they had a desire to do some sort of a trade, then it was like we wanted to foster whatever their interests were. It just so happened I grew up in an athletic family, and so my kids, it developed a love for sports as well. And so part of the homeschool journey was, how do we incorporate the sports with their schooling, because, I remember obviously going to school and playing at the school as being part of that team. But, there's so many different opportunities to do your different sports and everything. And so we were able to incorporate, that aspect of that, of their learning for sports and their love for sports as part of that curriculum as well.
Yeah. And we never had to worry about PE, because our kids were very heavily involved in sports. But there are just so many things that you can do. For us, sports was their PE. But I also wanted them to be well-rounded. So, all 5 of our kids did private piano lessons. I had them do art contests, poetry contests. I was just always getting them involved in different things. We took advantage of opportunities to go to nursing homes and visit grandparents and be involved in ministry and leadership activities. They were part of Teen Eagles. My last 2 kids were on leadership with Teen Eagles. It was just an incredible experience. So they were never lonely or I mean, they're very social kids.
And they're part of the co-op, you know, there's co-ops where parents bring their kids down, and they, for one day out of the week, they would go to some classes and get their work done, and they were able to foster and develop friendships through that. And, you know, that even to this day, many of my kids still have friends from that time as well. And so we, with the first three boys, made the decision to have them go into school, and because of sports, but through the experience into high school. But through that experience, you know, as some things kind of came up, we kind of looked at each other with the last two.
No, he looked at me and said, "Do you still want to homeschool through high school?"
Yeah,
and I said, "Sure."
And she said, "Yeah." And so we talked to the last two, my son and daughter, and my son was really into baseball, but they had a homeschool baseball team that he was able to be a part of, and a homeschool volleyball team that my daughter was able to be a part of, and so we decided to homeschool them through. And what I can say is, irregardless, the foundation laid from the homeschooling, even for the first three kids and the last two, they were prepared for stepping in and doing well in their testing and their grading, and, you know, so all of them did extremely well getting prepared for college from that regard. But the two that stayed homeschooled through high school, I mean, the time that we had together with them for those years, I would say, you know, they had a blast. They had a blast.
It was a great homeschool experience for them through high school. And they were, I would say they were more prepared for college than the first three. Now, they all did well in school, but I was able to do adulting with them those last 2 years of high school. The kids were extremely independent, did so many things on their own, and they were so ready that first semester of college. And you would think it's so counterintuitive that, oh, homeschooling all that time, they were coddled, so they probably were so homesick. They were fine. They were great, and they did really well. They did well academically, socially. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, and by that sophomore year and of being homeschooled in high school, they were ready to take college classes, you know, and dual enroll.
Junior year.
They took junior roll after their 2 years. Junior and senior roll. So then they ended up being able to go to the community college or take classes in college. And so when they ended up going to college, they already had knocked out a year and a half or so of required classes. So that there was a benefit, and they were prepared for that because they were learning at a fast pace, you know. And that's probably the benefit of homeschooling, is that you can have your child go as fast as they want through the curriculum, and they're getting their work done throughout the day. Or you can take your time.
Things. And that's the thing. I think here's the thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand and they're concerned about. They think, well, I don't want there to be gaps in their education. And my answer to that is there will be gaps in their education, just like there are gaps in public education and in private education, because the world's a big place. It's been around for a long time, and there is no way that you can teach them everything. But if you can foster an absolute passion for learning, help them to be curious, and teach them how to find information, they can teach themselves so much. And that's the key right there. They were good readers. They were able to find out information. My last two, to be able to have them say, well, I'm not sure how to do this. You know, well, do you want me to help you? No, I'll look it up. Well, okay.
And I think also, you know, a lot of people think I'm not qualified. You know, like when they get into high school, I mean, how am I going to be able to teach them science? How am I going to be able to teach them some of these things? Well, the beautiful thing about homeschooling is the community is so strong, and there are a lot of people that teach in college or high school that make themselves available to teach homeschool children, because they understand that those children are children that really want to learn, because they've grown up, with that strong desire to want to learn and understand and challenge and question. And so a lot of teachers enjoy that. And so if just because you may have a gap in a specific area like math or physics or whatever, which I was not capable of teaching, you can find resources or teachers that are willing to do that.
So many opportunities. There's tutors, there's classes that they can take. But and also you can get into a group where, I mean, I had an exchange with a mom who was a lawyer, and of course I was a writer and an editor. And I took her kids one day out of the week and I taught them writing and creative writing. And I mean, her mom could have done that, but, I was a little more bent on the literature side. And she taught my kids constitutional law, and they actually took apart, cases that she'd pull up and they'd have discussions. It was great. I mean, none of my kids became a lawyer, but the critical thinking skills they got from doing that, was an incredible experience, and they had a blast.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you fast forward to the end, and we have children that have now, our four sons have all graduated from college. They've all got jobs. 3 of them are living out of state, but they're very successful in their careers. And my daughter's a sophomore in college down in Texas as well. So we can look back through the journey and see the benefit of what the homeschool experience meant for them, because they are all, I mean, we have conversations with them now as parents where they thank us for thinking and having them go through this journey.
Well, and they weren't always on board with everything that we did. I mean, there were rules, there were things that we, I limited screen time, and you have to have this many hours of reading to earn this much of this or whatever. And those things that irritated them then, 2 of my sons who have children are now doing the same thing with them, because they say, you know what, it was actually a really good idea. So that's really cool to be able to look at that. But the one thing that I feel like we didn't touch on at all is our faith. That was huge. We're Christian. That was a huge reason for wanting to homeschool, to be able to instill that foundation in them. And one of the things that I was able to do, especially with my last 2, and this is something I wish I had been able to do with my first 3, was through high school, teaching things like apologetics and comparative religions and critical thinking and how can we trust the Bible, and to go through classes like that. And that had a huge impact on them. And the other thing is, not only have they done well academically, but they're all walking with the Lord, and we're still a really close-knit family, extremely close family. And those game nights that we established years ago, the kids come home for holidays, they can't wait to play a game with us. And my oldest son is going to be 33 years old next month, and he's the biggest game player out of this. He likes to play balderdash and, all kinds of things that we do together. So we still have a great time together. Homeschooling didn't ruin our family dynamic. It absolutely cemented it. So it's been an incredible journey. And now on this side, I love talking to other parents and helping them and encouraging them through their journey.
And Yvette's right now with our little preschooler. She has them come over once a week.
Our grandchild,
who's 4 years old, and she's taking them through the same preschool that she took our kids through when they were at that age and everything. So now you kind of see it from the other side.
And that's what I would hope, is that people who just continue to foster that love for learning, no matter how old they are. So
that's our
journey.